Today, Select Sires is North America's largest AI cooperative, but in those early years, it was difficult to know what the future held. At the time, George Miller was an employee of a cooperative considering joining Select Sires.
Dr. Jim Nichols, as an advisor to our group, told us or made the statement that you folks will not be joining in Select Sires for what it is now, but what it can become.
At the time of formation, a small group of people worked in the offices of COBA in Columbus, Ohio.
Select Sires was formed by the loaning of people into this kind of virtual organization by COBA and Kentucky and so forth. And it was not properly funded to start with. The people, when it came to payday, used to head for the bank as quick as they could to make sure their check didn't bounce.
During this critical time, Dr. Jim Nichols was hired as the general manager to lead the organization forward. While in that role only a short time, he made great strides in building the finances, facilities, and team of people at Select Sires.
When Jim Nichols was hired, the first thing he did was go to the Louisville Bank of Cooperatives and arrange for the proper financing of the organization so that then it could be on good footing.
In my opinion, his contribution at that short period of time was the key to Select Sires being successful down the road, because he had brought together some key people.
Now, as a stroke of luck, we had two then pretty good bulls in around 1970 who were beginning to pay a lot of the bills, and one of them, of course, was Elevation. The other was Fond Matt, and they paid for a lot of the bills that the company incurred, and that was more luck than skill. So if they had not been there, we might not be here.
Even through the growing pains of the organization, the small group of employees enjoyed the fellowship of the staff and their common goals.
Well, when I started in '73, obviously it was a smaller organization. Anytime you have a smaller organization, you're all in one office area. You're not divided. There's a little more camaraderie amongst the group, and we would do things. We would have, our annual parties and clear out the maintenance barn or maintenance building, and clear it out and clean the grease up off the floor a little bit. And we'd bring a band in and we'd square dance or we'd round dance, and everybody would bring in potluck or something like that. And so, that was the, I want to say the good old days, but that's the way it was in the early years.
So we would have parties and we could all go to just one house. It'd be the management and the secretaries, and we would just go to Jim Millinger's home maybe and have a party, and or to Harold Burkhold. He lived up the street up here as you get into town, and we'd have parties just in somebody's house. That's how small the group was.
When I was moved here from Michigan, we were producing semen at the COBA facility, and Select Sires had their headquarters in the back hallway of COBA, and so everybody was piled on top of everybody else. And I was moved in with Roy Wallace to share an office. Now, Roy is not the best housekeeper in the world, and neither am I will freely admit. And so I was generating paper because I was sort of an extension person, generating paper to teach people how to inseminate cows. And with nowhere to store this stuff that I was writing, I would put it in the office. And after a while, Roy got tired of that, and he took a piece of duct tape and made a strip across the floor and says, "That's your side of the office, this is my side of the office, do not cross."
In 1973, Dick Chichester became the general manager of Select Sires, and a period of growth commenced for the Federation.
The first one was in 1975 with All West. It took a while. These things, you know, they're farmer-owned, and it's not like sitting around with two people and making a deal. It's talking to 30 or 40 people and trying to make a deal, and it's never unanimous. But finally we convinced them, and they joined, and they gave us a presence on the West Coast.
New members joined the cooperative over the years, and opportunities for international connections were created.
After the early years was basically growth, particularly in the foreign markets. We hooked up with Worldwide Sires in California. We were one of their suppliers, and we didn't have to tramps all over Europe or anywhere else. We just sold the semen to them. They took care of the marketing in Europe and Asia, other places.
From there, we added international companies like Select Sires Canada, Worldwide Sires, and then later Select Sires do Brazil, which allowed us to spread our core capacity.
But even as Select Sires' reach has continued to grow, the cooperative model remains.
International sales is very important to our member owners here in the United States. And through the last 10 years, for example, we've sold semen in right at 94 countries. And we've doubled unit sales in 10 years. We've tripled income back to Select Inc. in the last 10 years. And that income comes back to Select Sires to help offset the rising cost in this industry.
The bottom line is it's the people working together. We're a co-op, and then we have the co-op member organizations who own Select Sires in the facility right here. So I think the advantage of that is we have the co-ops or the arms that are spread all over the country from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so the dairymen in those areas relate to that organization as if it is theirs. So they have a connection there. And that creates a bond as far as I'm concerned.
One of the key facets of the cooperative structure has always been a strong board of directors guiding the organization, and Select Sires is no exception.
Well, with the 50th anniversary, I've had to take a lot of time to study the history of Select Sires and spend a lot of time talking to Dick and George. And one of the things that's really clear that part of the success that can't be understated is the committed board that takes their job seriously as setting the direction for the organization. And being a committed board says they're not going to rely on management to set all the direction. They're going to set the direction, and the management decides how to get there. I think that's consistent from Dick's era to my era, and even before that, there's a commitment for us to be a cooperative, and a cooperative is one that works for its members and serves its members. And the true cooperatives at work have strong board of directors. So I think that's where it all starts in my mind.
Even to others in the industry, the cooperative structure is noted as a key factor in the success of Select Sires.
The structure of the organization, the fact that they were a co-op, so you did have the advantage of your board and your membership out there, that feedback and a support system. So when things got a little tough, you knew they were there for you, and so that helped. And I think kind of related to that, they always were able to keep a long-term strategy, but that's supported by the fact that you know your base is going to be with you, even if you have a tough time. They understand what you're trying to do, and they're going to support you. So I think that structure has been great for them across the country.
The other thing that I would say that really made a difference, our organization, Accelerated Genetics, was in the Midwest as a member organization, cooperative. We were strong in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, and had a very high market share for many, many years. However, in 1985, we decided to expand out of that membership territory and go into the rest of the United States. And what we found was the toughest competitor out there for us during that time was Select Sires again because of that genetic philosophy, but also because they had their federated structure, which meant that they had that same high market share in many regions around the United States, much like what we had in our member territory in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Made it pretty tough.
The cooperative spirit that initiated the conversations of the 1960s still permeates the Select Sires Federation today. As the organization looks to the future, the customer owners of the cooperative continue to remain the focus of Select Sires.